जय जय नवला किशोर, जय गोपी चित चोर प्रभो, जय जय माखन चोर, जय जय माखन चोर। श्री कृष्णचंद्र भगवान की, श्री SadGoswami गण की, जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की। उपस्थित भगवत स्वरूप पधारे हुए भक्त
Hare
वृंद,
Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Guru and Gauranga. I extend my heartfelt gratitude and warm welcome to all the senior Vaishnavas of International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Also, I extend my welcome to each one of the devotees who have assembled here live on Zoom platform and also very regularly attend the kathas on YouTube and Facebook.
प्रत्यक्ष रूप से आज देखने मिल रहा है कि जैसे एक बेटी एक कन्या दो परिवार का उद्धार करती है, अपने माता पिता के
So
कुल
you
का
see, we have been a witness
कुल का भी उद्धार
to
करती
this
है।
fact in the Shastras that a daughter delivers liberation both to the family of in-laws and to her maternal family.
आयोजित
Coincidentally, the similar preposition
मैं विशेष
happens to be exhibited here in
मदन बा
the 317th
के
Bhagvat
दो
Katha,
सुपुत्र
and my special thanks
गिरीश
to
प्रभु,
Mehta family
रेखा माता,
and
मयूर प्रभु,
Kundanba being the head of Mehta family and her two sons,
परिवार से
Girish Prabhu and Rekha
रेखा
Mataji and her family,
माता,
Mayur
दीपा
Prabhu, Meenakshi Mehta Mataji and her family,
दीपा जी,
and
ज्योति जी
also
और उनका पूरा परिवार
Devlukia family,
और रेखा जी,
Sailesh Prabhu and Hema
रीति
Mataji,
माता जी और
Deepa,
घनश्याम प्रिय प्रभु।
Sandeep and the entire family, Radhika Priti
आप सब
Devidasi
लोगों
ji
का
and Ghanshyam Priyadas.
गोपाल सहित आपके
I
समस्त
extend
परिवार का
my heartfelt gratitude and warm welcome
कथा के
to both Mehta
पावन
family
दिवस में
and Devlukia
पुनः
family
एक बार
to the first day
आप
Katha
सबका हार्दिक
of this
स्वागत है।
317th
आप सबके
Bhagvatam
चरणों
Katha.
में हमारा
Kindly
प्रणाम।
accept my humble obeisances. Hare
राधे
Krishna,
श्याम।
Radhe Shyam.
कुछ नया नया सा लग रहा है,
I guess
जैसे
each one
अगर
of you
हमने
might be able to
इतना
sense
शुरू
something
किया
fresh, something new,
तो प्रथम
something
शब्द कुछ
different.
चेंजेस आया ना कि भगवत स्वरूप पधारे हुए भक्तगण।
So just as I addressed in the very
एक तरह
beginning,
से मेरे
what
दिल
did
में
I
वो
say?
भाव
Bhagavad
जैसे
Swarup
शब्द के
devotees,
रूप में
the
वो
devotees who are
हिलने
not
लगा।
less than the form of the Lord himself.
वास्तव में
You see,
जब
I
हम
had
ध्यान
been
करते हैं
thinking
तो हमारे
about
मन में
this for quite a
कभी भी
long
यह भाव
time.
नहीं होता कि हम
So
जगत को सुधारने बैठे हैं,
must you believe
हम
me
आपको
when I
बहुत बड़ा
say
उपदेश और
that when
ज्ञान
I
देने
sit
बैठे
on
हैं,
this Vyaspeed, I never have an iota of
हम
thought that I'm
कुछ
sitting
सिखाने के
here
लिए आए हैं।
to deliver a lecture or that I'm here to mend you or that I intend to change
सच्चाई
or
में तो मेरे मन
improvise
में यही
you.
भाव होता
The
है
real fact is, the
कि
mood that I
श्री
have,
भगवान
the
कृष्ण,
emotion and sentiment that I have is
श्री
that Lord
चैतन्य
Ram,
महाप्रभु, राधा
Lord Shri
रानी,
Krishna, Radha
भक्त
Rani,
स्वरूप में
Chaitanya
आकर
Mahaprabhu
आप सब लोगों के रूप
must
में मेरे सामने बैठे हैं।
appear in the form of
देख रहे
devotees
हैं कि
just
बच्चा
like
कैसा
you.
बोल रहा है,
and that they are observing me as if, how am I delivering? What is the quality of my delivery? Isn't there anything fishy in my heart and mind? Or that, what are the shortcomings in my delivery? So I feel that it is the Lord Himself personified in the form of devotees who happen to sit as devotees. This is what I personally believe in. I do not lay a claim for the same feeling for the other speakers or Vyas speaks, but then I personally feel that Lord Himself comes in the form of devotees to listen to Bhagavatam Katha, and they focus more on what is the mood and sentiment and the essence rather than the exhibitionary things. Lord would only focus what is the objective and intention and essence of what the Vyas delivers. So, in essence, in a nutshell, I offer my heartfelt gratitude and please accept my humble obeisances at your lotus feet. I'm very excited, delighted, and happy that this Mehta family and the Lukia family have organized this beautiful katha, this 317th Bhagavad session on Sri SadGoswamis. So perhaps for a lot of devotees, this must be an unfamiliar term, which is Sadgoswamis. And usually we have less of kathas like this. And there are many reasons why do we have lesser number of kathas on subjects like this. And you see, one of the reason is that one has to cross many levels to reach Sadgoswamis. First of all, you see, one must understand Lord Krishna. And for that to happen, amongst lakhs and lakhs of people, only one can make an attempt to understand Lord Krishna. And you see, to understand Lord Krishna, one must engage in satsang and listen Bhagavatam. After having listened Bhagavatam, understand Sri Radharani, after which understand Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after having made an attempt to understand Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and you see, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a hidden, is a secret incarnation. And after having made an effort to understand Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then you see, you can go on to make an attempt to understand Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because unless you understand Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, unless you understand the mission and objective of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it is impossible to understand the mood, the mission of the Shad Goswamis. You see, I'm greatly fortunate that because of you devotees who are really very advanced devotees and who have been engaged in this sadhana bhakti, and you see, I would not say that we all have actually gone on to understand entirely Lord Shri Krishna, but overly, maybe up to some extent we have understood that Lord Shri Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually was Sri Radha Krishna personified. I think this level of understanding is already settled amongst all of us. So what I believe that we all are now eligible to listen the kathas about Goswamis. And you see what a great blessing and mercy of Sri Radha Rani that gradually over a period of time, you see, we have been able to observe that the degree and the intensity of the kathas is going on for an increase with every subsequent katha. And you see, somehow our host families have been so fortunately placed, so blessed, merciful, and wonderful devotees that the host family themselves go on to pitch and request for such greater, higher topics. And you see, Mehta family had this desire that every day we sing, we we chant SadGoswamis, so we must listen the Katha of
इस
Sri
कथा चरणों को
SadGoswamis.
वेग देने के लिए, हमारा भाव, हमारी भक्ति, हमारा प्रेम, हमारे रस को और आगे बढ़ाने के लिए एक और कथा का आयोजन श्रीमद् भागवत षड गोस्वामी है.
And that is how Shrimad Bhagavatam SadGoswami Katha has happened,
सभी
all by the
ठाकुर
efforts of Mehta and
सभी
Devlukia
लोग अपने
family.
अपने आइडल होते हैं,
You
अपने
see,
हीरो होते हैं.
in every genre,
ब्रह्म मुहूर्त
every
को भी
individual would
हमारा
have their own
भगवान श्री
heroes.
कृष्ण को प्राप्त करने के लिए
In
यदि
our
हमारे
tradition,
कोई
in
आइडल है,
Gaudiya
कोई हीरो है,
Parampara,
तो ये षड
the idol
गोस्वामी
that we
है.
have is these
ये
Shad
छह गोस्वामी
Goswamis, the six
जो वास्तव में
Goswamis,
हमारे
who
हीरो
are,
हैं.
in a real sense of the term, our ideals.
बहुत सारी बातें हैं षड गोस्वामी के विषय में. कुछ
There are
हमारे
many
तात्विक
popular
शास्त्रों में है.
stories
हमारे
about
पास
Sri Sad
कई वेद हैं
Goswamis, and that we are
और इन 6
having
दिनों
6
में
days at our
हमें
disposal.
6
And in
गोस्वामी
these
के
6
विषय में श्रवण
days,
करना है.
we are going to be listening about
सो
the stories and katha of Sri Shad
सबसे पहले
Goswamis.
षड गोस्वामी का दर्शन हम करें.
Let us have darshanam of Sri Shad Goswamis.
ये जो 6 गोस्वामी है,
These 6 Goswamis that you have on
प्राय
your
हम
screens
हमारे
before you,
हम हमारे मंदिर
usually
में
we do praise them in our altars.
यह फोटो रखते हैं. लेकिन यहाँ पर किसी को पूछा जाए कि
But
भाई
if
ये जो
somebody
6
was to
गोस्वामी हैं,
ask
इनमें से कौन गोस्वामी कौन
which
से हैं,
Goswami is who,
तो आप लोगों
perhaps
को भी इनका
half
उत्तर
of the
नहीं पता
devotees
होगा.
would not have
तो
the
हम यहीं से
answer to
शुरू करते
this.
हैं.
So let us begin
मेरे
from
मन में ये
here
हो रहा था कि
itself.
कहाँ से मैं प्रवेश करूं.
You see, even I was wondering where should I start from. So perhaps I would
ये आज
introduce
मैंने ही
by
जब मंदिर में
introducing
दर्शन
you
कर रहा था तो मेरे मन में ही ख्याल आया,
which Goswami is which one in the
कि भाई
picture.
आपकी कथा करनी है तो आशीर्वाद दीजिए. तो मेरे मन में प्रश्न आया कि ये प्रश्न भी बनता है कि भाई इनमें
So
से
you see, in morning when I
गोस्वामी
was
कौन, इनमें से सनातन
meditating,
गोस्वामी कौन,
this question certainly must
रघुनाथ
surface
दास,
in the minds and
रघुनाथ
heart.
भट्ट,
Who
जीव
is Rup
गोस्वामी और
Goswami? Who
गोपाल
is Jeev
भट्ट
Goswami?
गोस्वामी.
Who is Gopal
तो इनमें से
Goswami?
कौन कौन से हैं.
So let us
मुझे नहीं
try to
लगता कि 100
identify
में
them.
से 90 मतलब 10% भी आंसर दे पाएंगे.
I don't think even
हमारे होस्ट
10%
को
can
ही पूछा
answer.
जाए. अमित
If I
नारायण
was to
प्रभु,
ask the host family, in fact, the host, Amit Narayan
तो आइए
Prabhu,
सबसे पहले हम ये
I
जानने की
think
कोशिश
even he
करें,
would be
क्योंकि
not able to answer.
हम जब मंदिर में प्रणाम करते हैं, विग्रह तो होते
So
हैं.
this is very, very important.
सो आपके सामने ये जो पिक्चर है, उनको हम यदि लेफ्ट से शुरू करें,
So starting from the
आपके लेफ्ट से,
left, from your left,
तो सबसे पहले लेफ्ट में है रूप
the
गोस्वामी.
first one from the left is Rup
लेफ्ट की
Goswami.
प्रथम जो छवि है वो है रूप गोस्वामी. दूसरी
So
उसके
on the
बाद में है सनातन
leftmost, on the left
गोस्वामी.
hand side, we have Rup
जब हम
Goswami,
आगे बढ़ेंगे
followed by Sanatan
तो लेफ्ट
Goswami.
से तीसरी छवि है
Third from the
रघुनाथ
left
भट्ट
is
गोस्वामी.
Raghunath Bhatta Goswami.
लेफ्ट से चौथी छवि है
Fourth from the
जीव
left is
गोस्वामी.
Chief Goswami.
लेफ्ट से पांचवी छवि है गोपाल भट्ट गोस्वामी.
Then fifth one is
और
Gopal
लेफ्ट से
Bhatt Goswami
छठी
from the
छवि
left.
है
And sixth
रघुनाथ
one
दास
from the left
गोस्वामी.
is Raghunath Das
ठीक है,
Goswami.
तो सबसे लेफ्ट में है रूप गोस्वामी,
Rup Goswami onto the
सबसे
left,
राइट में है
and onto the
रघुनाथ दास
right,
गोस्वामी,
Raghunath
और
Das
सबसे
Goswami
बीच
on
में
the either
जीव
ends.
गोस्वामी. तो फिर से एक बार कह दूं
So
ताकि
let me
हमारी समझ सुगम
repeat
हो जाए.
for the benefit of each one of
तो ये
us,
जो छवि है
starting from the
हमारी
left,
षड गोस्वामी की, सो लेफ्ट में है रूप गोस्वामी, लेफ्ट
Rup
नंबर 1.
Goswami.
फिर लेफ्ट से सेकंड छवि है
Then the
सनातन
second from the
गोस्वामी.
left is Sanatan
लेफ्ट
Goswami.
से तीसरी छवि
The
है
third from left
रघुनाथ
is
भट्ट
Raghunath
गोस्वामी.
Bhatt Goswami.
लेफ्ट से
Fourth from
चौथी
the
छवि है
left,
जीव गोस्वामी.
Jeev Goswami.
लेफ्ट से पांचवी
Fifth
छवि
from
है
the left
गोपाल
is
भट्ट गोस्वामी.
Gopal Bhatt Goswami.
और लेफ्ट से छठी छवि है
And sixth from the
रघुनाथ
left
दास
is
गोस्वामी.
Raghunath Das Goswami.
तो इस प्रकार से ये हमारे 6 गोस्वामी हैं. और आज हम जो कुछ भी है
So
इन
these are 6 Goswamis.
की कृपा से.
Whatever we are, whatever I
इन
am,
6
it is only
गोस्वामी
because
को
of the
कहा
mercy and
गया,
blessings
मैंने
of these
पहले ही
6
कहा
Goswamis.
कि
So
श्री
if
चैतन्य महाप्रभु
I was to ask that how do we understand these six Goswamis, then I would say that if one is not able to understand Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his incarnation teachings on objectives, it is absolutely impossible to understand Shad Goswamis. If there is a query that why did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared on this material world, so the two main reasons for the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on this material world is number one, the love of Srimati Radharani. And if I was to put it simply, so if I was to put it in simple terms, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually came, Shri Krishna actually came in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to undergo and to experience prema bhakti. The second reason for the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to appear on the earth was to teach the fallen conditioned souls to learn, to make them learn prema bhakti, to equip them with prema bhakti. No doubt that devotion and worship used to happen of Sri Krishna and Radharani before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but then the devotion earlier, before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was more driven by fear, was driven more by desires, more driven by rituals. It had been driven more by, you see, selfish interests. Also, you see, people engaged in bhakti and devotion because they feared Yamraj and the Dut of Yamdav. So, to avoid hell, one used to do bhakti. So, fear was the factor, selfishness was the factor, self interest was the factor. Some, those who were not, you see, driven by the needs of this world, used to engage in bhakti because of the desire of heavens and other planets. So people do engage in bhakti, but the objective is not up to mark. The utmost objective of bhakti is to attain Bhagvat Prem or Krishna Prem. But numerous conditioned souls missed upon this objective of Krishna Prem. So, in order to establish what is love and affection, what sense does it make for enjoying the love towards Sri Krishna? So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was actually Krishna personified in the form of Srimati Radharani. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he had come on this material world, realized that it is not possible to establish his objective all by himself. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt that he must bring his associates along with him to the material world. And hence Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, actually Radha Krishna in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, came from his abode, and from his own abode, you see, we have associates who appear on this material earth. So Acharyas were nobody other than but the eternal associates of the Lord in his eternal abode. Lalita and Vishakha Sakhi and the other six Sakhis, and also the other team. So in the eternal world, there was a Sakhi of Radha Krishna whose name was Roop Manjari. In Sri Gaur Ganadesh Deepika, it is mentioned in the form of the shloka which is there on the screens before you. So in the eternal pastime of the Lord, there is a Sakhi of Sri Radha Krishna whose name is Sri Rupa Manjari. So the shloka goes something like this.
यासित वृंदावने पुरा साध्यरूपाख्य गोस्वामी भूत्वा प्रकटतामियात् भूत्वा प्रकटतामियात्। श्री रूप मंजरी ख्याता।
So Shri Rup Manjari Khyata Asid Vrindavane Pura. Pura means in the age of Dwapar, in this Vrindavan or in eternal Vrindavan. The one who stays in Vrindavan, and her name is Rup Manjari.
रूप मंजरी जो रहती हैं सअद्य, वो अभी अभी कवि कर्णपुर के जमाने की बात, मतलब 500 वर्ष पहले की बात, ये ग्रंथ लिखा गया।
So this text was written 500 years before. So the text says Rup Manjari in the age of Kali Yuga in the form of Shri Rup Goswami appeared. So Rup Manjari, the Sakhi of Sri Radha Krishna, appeared on this material world in the form of Shri Rup Goswami. And you see, Rup Goswami went on to establish great things. So let me share with you that Shad Goswamis no doubt are the most prominent and famous ones. But you see, there had been two Goswamis even before these two, before these six Goswamis, one being Bhugarva Goswami, who laid the foundation to discover Sri Vrindavan. But his name is not mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrut because he had clearly said no, that his name should not be mentioned and displayed. So in real sense of the term, there must be 8 Goswamis. But the two Goswamis had strictly said no, that their name should not be found. So those two secret Goswamis we will talk about at some other point of time. We will talk about the 6 Goswamis. But we cannot forget those two. So the point that I was trying to get across was Rup Goswami achieved many great things. The two major ones being, number one, so he went on to rediscover the places of Sri Radha Krishna's pastime in Vrindavan. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he went to Vrindavan for the first time, you see, there was nothing. 5,000 years before, Sri Radha Krishna's pastime, when it had got over, after that it transformed into forests. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu found water at two places, at two pits, which he said it is Radha Kund and Shyam Kund. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had given a vow to his mother that he would stay at Jagannath Puri. So he had to go to Jagannath Puri. But he had the great desire that the pastime place of Sri Radha Krishna must resurface in Sri Vrindavan. And that is the reason this desire he got established and accomplished by his associates. And the foremost amongst those associates is Sri Rup Goswami. So you see, this is really a great achievement by the Shad Goswamis to rediscover those places where Radha Krishna were born, where did they perform their pastimes. And the second big achievement of Rup Goswami was to write a test. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ordered and instructed Jeev Goswami that for the benefit of the fallen conditioned souls in the times to come, must you write the text, must write what is the different levels of love and affection, what are the different degrees of love and affection, how can one progress in bhakti, must you write upon all this. So you see, no doubt that Shri Sud Goswami gave Bhagavatam, but then you see, customized form of Bhagavatam be presented by the Shad Goswamis. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed Rup Goswami to write the texts. And in this way, Rup Sanatan went on to establish these objectives. So, though we would pick up one Goswami each day, but the story of Rup Goswami and Sanatan Goswami is intertwined, and hence we will jointly listen to the Katha of Rup Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, because the story goes almost parallel, and then we will pick up separately individual Goswamis. So if I was to talk about some basic knowledge, then you see sometimes the mention comes like Roop Sanatan. So we call the name of Roop Goswami first, followed by Sanatan Goswami. But if you look at it from the point of view of age, then Sanatan Goswami was the elder brother and Roop Goswami being the younger one. But even to this day, in the Shastras, Puranas, and text, Rup Goswami appears first. The name of Rup Goswami comes first, followed by Sanatan Goswami. Now, I would ask you, why does it so happen? So we will focus upon all such queries and questions. So you see, no doubt that the Katha of Lord is appealing, but the fact is that we might not get the inspiration. Through Krishna Katha, we certainly might, get interested, and that we might fall in love with Krishna. But then what is the inspiration? So Lord Krishna did, held Govardhan Parvat on his finger, but can we do that? No doubt that you would get attraction towards the Lord through Krishna Katha, but where will you get the inspiration from? Where will you get the motivation in bhakti? Which is what you would get by way of understanding the Shad Goswamis. Shad Goswamis have been really very great souls. A very beautiful bhajan has been dedicated to the Shad Goswamis, which is there on the right hand side of your screens.
प्रेमामृताम्बोनिधि धीरा धीर जन प्रिय प्रिय करो निर्मत्सरो पूजितो श्री चैतन्य कृपा भरो भुवि भुवो भारावहं तारको वंदे रूप सनातनो रघुयुगो श्री जीव गो पालको ब्रह्म मध्व गौड़ीय धारा का आश्रय.
So in our Gaudiya Parampara, the devotees of our Gaudiya Parampara must recite this bhajan every day. There are 8 shlokas in this bhajan, in which this glory of the Shad Goswamis, their routine, what did they do in their life, their mood and sentiment, everything has been mentioned in a crisp manner. So this is what is called as Shad Goswami Ashtakam. So we would touch upon 1 or 2 shlokas every day of the Shad Goswami Ashtakam. We would make everything happen. You just need
मुझे
to take
सच
our
कहूं
time and
इसमें से
sit
एक शब्द मुझे
before
बहुत अच्छा लगता
on
है।
your screens. If you ask me, I really fall
दो शब्द
in
हैं
love with one
मुझे बहुत अच्छे
word,
लगते
with
हैं,
two
वो है
words of
श्री
the third line
चैतन्य
of
कृपा
this
भरो।
shloka.
श्री चैतन्य
Shri
महाप्रभु ने
Chaitanya Kripa
भर
Bharo.
दी।
So Shri
मतलब
Chaitanya
जैसे
Mahaprabhu went on
अब
to
आपने
give
कभी ये सब नहीं किया होगा,
mercy and blessing in
कभी
huge
कोई
quantities.
गाडलू आवे ना, गाडलू આપણે गद्दा बनाते हैं ना, कभी आपने पीलो या गद्दा रुई से भरा
So
है?
if I was to
गांव में ऐसा
illustrate,
रुई से भर
if
के
if
सजा
you've
के
ever,
सजा के, ये तो
you see,
माताएं
filled
वो
a
कांच के
mattress
बरनी में
or
अन्न
a
बनाती हैं
pillow,
बनवा के,
or in fact Matajis would very
भर के,
often fill,
तो
you see, a
श्री
jar with the
चैतन्य
pickles.
कृपा
So
भरो,
similarly,
चैतन्य
Chaitanya
महाप्रभु ने कृपा
Mahaprabhu's
भर दी,
blessings and
जबरदस्त
mercy
कृपा भर दी है।
has been
किन्हीं
showered
रूप
very
सनातन छह
strongly
गोस्वामी
and
में
extremely in the
महाप्रभु के
six
द्वारा जो
Goswamis.
कृपा भरी
So
दी है,
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has
उनके बारे में क्या कहें।
immensely been
श्री
merciful
चैतन्य कृपा
and
भरो।
blissful upon the
तो गोस्वामी
Shat
कहते हैं कि
Goswamis.
कृष्णोत्कीर्तन गान नर्तन
So the
भजन।
shloka goes something like this.
ये कौन थे? रूप सनातन, ये सब
So
कृष्ण
who
के
were these Rup
नृत्य
Goswami,
करते थे,
Sanatan
उनका
Goswami?
सखियां मंजरिया थी।
So they were
लेकिन
the
इन गोपियों ने,
Sakhis.
सखियों ने, मंजरियों ने धरती पर कृष्ण को प्रेम कैसे व्यक्त किया? कीर्तन
So
करके।
how did these Sakhis went on to
ये
present their
आजकल क्या है
love
ना,
and
हमारे ब्रज
affection
में
for Sri
कुछ लोग
Krishna?
पुरुष
By
बनकर गोपी बन जाते हैं।
Kirtan.
वो घाघरा पलटन जिसको हमारे गुरुजी कहते हैं, दिखने में भी अच्छे नहीं लगते हैं। देखो ये परम चरम सीमा पर थे भक्ति के भाव और
So you see, the Shat
भक्ति
Goswamis
की
had been
परम
at the
चरम सीमा
pinnacle
तक
of bhakti
पहुंचकर भी
and
क्या
devotion.
करते हैं?
But
कृष्णोत्कीर्तन,
even being
कृष्ण
at
का
the
कीर्तन
top
करते थे।
of
गान,
Shri
कृष्ण
Krishna's
का
bhakti,
कीर्तन
what did
गाते
they
थे,
engage in?
नर्तन
It was
नृत्य करते थे।
engaging in Kirtan of the Lord
और नृत्य
and
किसका?
dance
पवित्र
on the
नृत्य।
Kirtan of the Lord.
हैं?
And the
जिसको
dance
कहते
was
हैं
natural,
मर्यादिक नृत्य करते थे।
which was within
सो
the contours of
कृष्णोत्कीर्तन गान
tradition,
नर्तन परो,
unlike the
ये वंदे
Sakhi
शब्द जो
Paltan,
है
which has
सबके
become very
सामने बोला
popular
है।
in Vrindavan.
वंदे रूप सनातन
And my Guru Maharaj takes a
श्री
jibe at
प्रभुपाद
them.
को, ये छह गोस्वामी को मैं नमस्कार करता हूँ।
So I offer my
कथम
obeisances to the
गोस्वामी
six
कहते हैं, छह
Goswamis.
गोस्वामी
And how are the
हरे
six
कृष्ण
Goswamis?
कीर्तन, जो कृष्ण का कीर्तन करते
The
हैं, उस
ones
छह
who are
गोस्वामी को
engaged in
नमस्कार
doing
करता हूँ।
kirtan for Sri Radha Krishna.
गान,
So I
जो
offer my obeisances to
कृष्ण
them.
के कीर्तन में
Gan
गीत गाते हैं
means
उनको
those who
नमस्कार
sing
करता
the
हूँ।
songs of kirtan
नृत्य
for
करते
Sri
हैं
Radha Krishna. I offer my obeisances to
और
them.
प्रेम
Those who
भक्ति परम
dance at the
चरम
kirtan of
भक्ति
Sri Radha Krishna, I
और
offer my
अनंत
obeisances to them.
निरंतर
And
प्रेम अमृत की निधि, निधि माने समुद्र, प्रेम अमृत के सागर
and
में निमज्जन रहते हैं, मग्न
those
रहते हैं।
who are completely
जब हृदय वो
engrossed
प्रेम
in
में
the ocean of
बह
love and
जाए,
affection
हृदय
towards the
प्रेम से
Lord,
युक्त है।
I offer my humble obeisances to
और
them.
सबसे बड़ी बात,
And very
इतने ऊंचे भक्त
importantly,
होकर भी
despite
धीर
being
और
such
अधीर, दो तरह के लोग
elevated
होते हैं ना, एक होते हैं
devotees,
धीर, जीवन
so
में
there are two
कितनी भी
type of
दुर्गति हो
devotees
जाए, बंदे के मन को कोई चिंता नहीं
who are
है।
very stable,
हमको ऐसा लगता है
content.
राम को राज तिलक हो जाए तो भी
So
चिंता
come
नहीं,
what may, unto
राम
what
को वनवास मिले
circumstances may
या
come,
सोमनाथ मैया
but
पट्टाभिषेक
the
हो जाए,
devotee shall remain
वनवास
very
इस
balanced,
सुंदर कि
stable,
राम मुझे श्री रघुनंदन
and
श्यामा,
unmoved,
बहुत सुंदर
just
बात
like Lord
गोस्वामी
Shri
जी ने
Ram,
कह दी
whether
कि
he
जब
attained
अयोध्या का राजा
kingdom
बनने का
or
समाचार
not,
सुना तो
he's
तत्वी हर्ष
remained
हो
very,
गया।
very balanced. So when Lord
और
Ram
जब
got the
अयोध्या से
news of
वनवास
being
लेने का समाचार
declared
सुना
as
तो
the crown
यानी कोई दुख
prince,
नहीं हुआ,
he did not feel
सभी परिस्थितियों में
happy to even a
मंद मंद
degree.
मुस्कुराने
And
वाले,
even when he was
प्रसन्न रहने
exiled to
वाले
forest, he
रामचंद्र
did
के
not
मुख
feel an
को
iota
मैं
of
देखकर उनके
sadness.
चरणों में निरंतर प्रणाम
So
करता हूँ।
always continuously
भगवत गीता
smiling,
का ओपनिंग करने के
very
बाद कृष्ण ने
in a
अर्जुन को
small
पहला
degree,
बात यही
I
कही,
offer my
क्या कहा?
obeisance to such Sri
धीरस्य
Ram.
तत्र
This
न
exactly
कुर्वन्ति।
also the first
हे
point
अर्जुन, जो धीर
delivered
व्यक्ति
by
है,
Lord Shri Krishna to
धीर
Arjun.
व्यक्ति का
O
मन
Arjun,
तेरी तरफ मोहित नहीं होता, तू रो रहा है,
somebody
मैं
who is
दादा को
stable,
पैसे
somebody who is
मारूंगा,
content
काकी
and
को पैसे मारूंगा,
balanced,
चाचा मामा
is
ताऊ सबको।
unlike you. They would
धीर
never weep
आदमी
like you. How
हटाता
would you
है।
kill your relatives? A
तो
balanced person never
कहते हैं
gets
कि धीर,
attracted
धीर
like
माने
how you are
जीवन
being
में कैसी
attracted.
भी देखो जीवन है,
So
मनुष्य
balanced
जीवन उतार
person
चढ़ाव
means
आएंगे,
come what may be the circumstance. You
जीवन
see,
में कुछ भी
life is all
अच्छा
about
हो भी
ups
न
and
लगे
downs.
और गाली
So
कभी
in
मुंह
your
से ना
life,
निकले,
you would have appreciations and
जब आपसे
acknowledgements
कोई
coming
कुछ
from
अच्छा
some
करे
corner,
तो जो पीछे
and
कोई
you would
गाली दे रहे
also
होंगे वो
have
पता है।
some criticism
अरे वो
coming
कहावत
from
अच्छी थी,
some other
कि
corner.
सूरज आपको हाथी की अंबाड़ी पर बिठाए, समझ लेना पीछे
So
पीछे
you
घूर
see, in
रहा
Gujarat,
है।
it is said, the moment
कोई
people make you
मैं
sit on an
बोलूंगा,
elephant,
कोई फूलों
must
का
you
हार मिल
know
जाए ना,
that
ऐसे
somebody
चिल्लाने
is
का कि
coming
प्रभु जी आए हैं, ये
very
समझ लो
soon
ये आज
to make
फूल
you
का हार
sit on
नहीं
a
तो चप्पल
donkey.
का हार मिलने
So
वाला
if
है।
somebody offers
अभी
you
से
a
मेंटली
garland
कर
of
लो,
flowers,
मेंटली
is
कर
also
लो
an
कि क्या
indication
फूल
that
का
very
हार
soon you would have a
आज
garland
फूल
of
का आएगा।
slippers and footwears coming
ये
around the
संसार
corner.
है भक्तों, ये
Because this is a
संसार है,
material world
सब
after
कुछ
all.
बैलेंस
And the
होता है,
material world, you
आजकल
see,
बैलेंस
there are
डाइट
all
चल रही
types of
है।
people.
बैलेंस का
So
बड़ी
in this material world,
बैलेंस
everything has
माइंड,
to be
बैलेंस डाइट का बड़ा
balanced, isn't
जमाना
it?
है।
And you see, the world today talks about
ये
balanced
देखो बैलेंस
mind,
क्यों
balanced
सुख दुख
diet,
बैलेंस में
etc.
होती है।
So that's the reason,
कुछ लोगों
happiness
को
and sadness are
अमेरिका में
also in
बहुत सम्मान
balance.
मिलता है, भारत वाले भारत में गाली देते हैं।
Some people get a lot of laurels in
कुछ लोगों
US
को यहाँ
while
सम्मान
they're
मिलता है
pushed
तो वहाँ
aside in
गाली
India.
देखेंगे, कुछ लोगों को यहाँ गाली मिलते हैं वहाँ
So
गाली
somebody
मिलता
would
है।
be getting laurels in India while would
संतुलन
not be
अवश्य होगा,
even recognized and
तो
identified in America.
चाहे सम्मान मिले चाहे
So,
गाली मिले,
life is all about a
मेरा चरित्र
balancing game.
बनो,
There are things which are
धीरज
always
नहीं हारना,
balanced. But a
उससे
balanced
कोई फर्क
person, a
नहीं पड़ता,
stable person,
चाहे कुछ
is
भी हो।
not moved either by happiness,
मेरी बात लग आ
acknowledgement,
रही है,
sadness, or
एक
ignorance.
बहुत बड़े
Dear
संत के
devotees,
संबंध में बोल
I
रहा हूँ।
am recalling
तो
some incident. You see, there was a
वो संत
great
बड़े धीर गंभीर
saint who was
जैसे
very,
कबीर
very
जी ने गीता में
stable,
कहा ना कि
who was very,
सील
very
सुखा
content,
भाषा समाधि
just like as
तपस्या
what
ईश्वर
Arjuna said
किम
to Shri
आसु
Krishna
व्रजेत किम।
in Bhagvat Gita.
कृष्ण मैं ये जानना चाहता हूँ जो
So
सत्य
Arjun asked
संत
to Lord
साधु
Krishna,
होता है
those who
वो
are
कैसे
saints,
उठता है कैसे
how
बैठता है।
does he wake
साधु
up?
की
How does he
चाल भी बहुत
sit?
अच्छी होती है,
You see,
उनका चलना उनका बोलना उनकी
so
प्रकृति कभी
everything,
बड़ी मतवाली होती है
every aspect
और
of a saint
बड़ी
is very, very
शांत।
unique. And
क्या
Arjun did
करते हैं,
raise this
एक लगे
question to
विनय
Lord
की
Shri
चाल
Krishna
उनकी बोली,
that, oh Shri
उनका उनका
Krishna,
बैठना कैसे
explain to
कैसे
me all the
रहता है, ये सब कुछ
activities
बताओ।
of a stable and
ऐसा ही
content
एक बहुत
person
बड़े
who
संत थे,
remains unmoved in all
भजन भक्ति कर रहे थे
situations, be it adverse
और
or
एक दिन
favorable
ये कहीं
conditions.
भजन कीर्तन करने गए होंगे, वापस लौट रहे थे, उनकी कुटिया में आग लग गई,
So there was
उनके
a
आश्रम
saint
में।
who had just returned to his ashram when
तो
he
दो तीन
saw
लोग दौड़ कर
that
आए
his
पूछने कि क्यों
hamlet
प्रभु आपके
had
वहां आग
caught
लगी है।
fire. So two, three
तो वो
people
तो
came
भजन कर
running
रहे थे,
to the
बोले
saint
आग लग रही है जल्दी चलो।
who told him that
बहुत ही
your
गुस्सा हो गए
hut
थे,
has caught fire, but
बहुत
still
बोले
he
कि
was
कभी
walking very
संस्कार से
slowly.
चले तब
So
किसी की
despite
शांति
being
में
said
बाधा
again and
नहीं आती।
again, he was
आप
still
लोग
walking very
नहीं मानेंगे,
briskly. Then somebody said that
ये
your
नहीं
hut is on
मानेंगे
fire. Why don't you
कि
walk
संत ने इतना
fast?
ही कहा कि
The saint
60 साल से
replied
मेरी
that
चाल नहीं बदली,
for
60
60
साल से
years I did
मेरी चाल
not
नहीं बदली।
amend the way
आप
I
चाहेंगे
walk.
उसमें मैं मेरी चाल
So
बदल दूंगा,
why should I walk
मैं
in
मेरा
a different
संयम,
manner?
मैं मेरी
Because
धीरता
my
छोड़ दूंगा।
heart has been on fire. Is it that I
सुनो
should leave my
सद गोस्वामी
contentment
के विषय
and
में,
my stability and
इस
unmoving
भक्ति
nature only because the heart has
प्रपन्नम
caught
वरो
fire? No, I shall not do
प्रेमानंदम
that.
बुधिनी।
So further, the
हम
shloka goes on to say
निर्जन रहते थे, स्वयं
that
प्रेम
they were
के
always
समुद्र स्वरूप थे, और मैं ये कहता था
traveling
धीर
and
और
staying in the
अधीर,
mood of love and
एक होता है
affection.
धीर जो कुछ भी
So,
हो जाए कैसी भी
so
परिस्थिति
one
हो
is a
कैसे भी
stable
तनाव कोई भी
person and the
टेंशन
other
हो,
person is an impatient person.
आपको किससे
So
मित्रता
if you
करनी
were
है,
to
किससे
ask me,
आपको
I
लगता
will
है,
tell you
तो
that who
या
should you
तो
make
मन में
friends
हो कि
with?
मुझे किससे फ्रेंडशिप करनी है,
Who should you make
या
your friends?
किसका आश्रय लेना है, या
Or
किसका
who with whose
एसोसिएशन करना
company or
है।
association
कोई
should
महान
you
का
be staying
एसोसिएशन
in?
करोगे तो ही तो महान बनोगे ना।
So if you would only associate yourself
तो
with
फिर
some great
महान कौन,
people, that
ये
you
सब
would
चेक करो,
yourself become great and
ये सब
wise.
नहीं देखो,
So who is
उसमें
great?
धीरता कितनी
You
है।
see, can be tested
मतलब
only by one test, and the
सिचुएशन बाय
test is by
सिचुएशन,
test of patience
जिसका मन
and
कितना
stable and
पवित्र,
content nature.
जिसका मन
And
जितने
you
विचलित
see,
होता है वो उतना ही हल्का
you
आदमी
can
है,
test that
वो उतना ही
that
नीचा,
how stable
नीचा
a
कहने
person
का
is in
मतलब
adverse
है,
situation.
वो उतना नीचा
So
है,
a person
छोटी छोटी
who
बातों में क्रोध कर
becomes
ले, छोटी छोटी बातों में
annoyed,
आपे से बाहर
who
हो जाए,
exhibits
ऐसे
anger,
आदमी की महानता नहीं
who
बढ़ती।
loses patience in
उनकी
even a smaller
हमेशा
degree of adverse situation
जो
would be a
उद्वेग
very
रहना,
shallow
मन का
person.
उद्वेग रहना, कभी यहाँ कभी वहां मन का भागदौड़
who does not have stable mind and heart.
किसी को बुरा लग जाना, कोई तो इतने होते हैं, बुरा लग जाता है।
You see, some people feel bad and
ऐसे
gets
लोगों को
frowned in
स्वर्ग
very
में भी स्थान
small
नहीं मिलने
talks.
वाला। वो
So you
बहुत
see,
बोलेंगे,
you
आप
will
कुछ नहीं
never
करेंगे।
achieve anything good out of
ये तो
such people.
आश्रय लेना है,
If
संगति
you
करनी
were
है,
to
धीर रखना
associate
है।
yourself, if you were to
मुझे तो
look for good
वाह
company,
ऐसे
you see,
लोग
you
जब मैं
must
बोलता
look
हूँ तो
for
आंखों के सामने
people
दिखाई देते
with a
हैं,
lot of patience,
धीर
stable mind, and heart.
चाहे कुछ भी हो जाए। कुछ लोग ऐसे होते हैं कि दूसरों के जीवन में कुछ भी हो जाए तो धीर लेकिन
But
खुद के
also, we
जीवन
have
में
some category
तो
of
अधीर हो
people
जाए,
who
ऐसे भी
remains
होते हैं।
unmoved
चाहे अपने जीवन में
by
या
the
किसी के
developments
जीवन में
happening in
कुछ भी
other
हो जाए,
people's life, but become very
ऐसे
impatient with
कैसे
even a
लोग।
small degree of
तो यहाँ
adverse
पर क्या कहना
development in
चाहते हैं,
their own
धीर माने
lives.
साधु संत महात्मा,
Sudhir here
धीर
means
माने
saints and
सांसारिक
sadhus,
लोग,
and adhir means people of the material world.
सतगुरु सनातन रघुनाथ दास भट्ट ये जो है
So
शील
all the
गोस्वामी,
Shad
ये
Goswamis
धीर
actually
जो
fall into the
जो धीर
category
साधु
of
संत महात्मा
stable
थे उनके
people.
भी प्रिय थे और
And
अधीर लोग भी प्रिय
interestingly,
थे।
they
ये
were
बहुत बड़ी महिमा है।
equally
हमारा क्या ना, हम डिवोटी बन जाते
respected
हैं,
and revered
प्रभु जी
by
बोलते हैं,
both
बाकी के
class
बस
of
गाली देते
people,
हैं, ये साला कुछ काम का नहीं
the
है, ये
patient and
पूजा
the
नहीं करता।
impatient one.
तो धीर हमारी प्रशंसा करते हैं, अधीर लोग हमको चाहते हैं।
But you see, for people like
क्योंकि
us,
इनकी
patient
पर्सनैलिटी
people
ऐसी
full of
अलग थी,
patience do
इतने
appreciate
ऐसा
us,
जीवन
but
जीते थे
impatient people
कि जब वो
criticize us very
भक्ति
heavily.
प्रिय प्रेम करते
And
थे तो
interestingly, the
अधीर
Shad
लोगों को भी
Goswamis
प्रेम
were
करते थे।
revered
रघुनाथ दास
by
गोस्वामी के
both
जीवन में
categories
सुनिए,
of people.
रघुनाथ दास गोस्वामी बहुत
For
राजा थे,
example,
बेटे थे।
you see in Raghunath Goswami's story, we would talk
बिजनेस
about it.
पर्सन,
Raghunath Goswami
बाद
was
में
the
तो बहुत
son of
गड़बड़
a
कर दी,
very great
कुछ
king.
गलत बिजनेस कर दिया, कुछ
And you see, he came in conflict
तो
with
उसको
the
दर्द
king.
होना था रघुनाथ दास
So
गोस्वामी को
Raghunath
कि
Das
ओहो ये
Goswami's
कुछ, लेकिन
father,
रघुनाथ
you
दास
see,
गोस्वामी ने इस प्रकार से टैकल किया
was to
कि उनके
undergo
पिताजी को जो
punishment.
दंड मिलने वाला था उससे भी
But
वो बच
Raghunath
गए। जो
Das
अधीर
Goswami
लोग
went on
वो
to
भी बहुत
handle the
कहते हैं,
situation in
हम
such a
लोग
manner that his
अ,
father escaped
अपने बातों से
punishment.
मना लिया।
And even those people who had stood
सो
up against
धीर
his
के भी
father
प्रिय थे, अधीर के
were
भी
also
प्रिय थे।
convinced
यहाँ पर हम
by
उदाहरण ले
Goswami.
सकते हैं नारद मुनि का,
For
है ना,
example,
नारद
we
जी
can
कैसे
take the
प्रिय है,
example of
जिसको
Naradji.
देवता भी प्रेम करते हैं,
So you see,
मुनि
Naradji
भी
is one
करते हैं,
character who
और
is
वीणा
equally
विद्वान भी
revered
उतना ही
by
प्रिय है।
gods as well as
लेकिन
demigods
हम लोग
and
उसको देखते हैं
also
परंपरा में, आखिर षड
by the
गोस्वामी कौन है,
demons.
नारद मुनि की परंपरा के। हमें भी
After all,
नारद जी
these
के
Shad
गुणों को
Goswamis fall
धीरे
into
धीरे
the
लेना
tradition
शुरू
of
करें।
Sri Narad
हम
Muni
किसी को
himself.
परेशान न करें, हमारे
So
आचरण से
gradually and eventually we should
अभी
develop
शादी की सीजन
this
आ रही है, ठीक है,
we should develop
शादी की सीजन में
this
बहुत
habit
इतनी
that
चढ़ेगी,
we must
इतनी
not
भक्ति
end up
चढ़ेगी भक्तों को कि
hurting
शादी के दिन फिर
somebody.
कहेंगे जी आपने भोजन कर
You
लिया,
see,
हम बाहर का नहीं खाते हैं। अबे तू
in
बाहर का नहीं खाता तो तू प्रचार क्यों
marriage,
कर
when
रहा है,
people
गलत है।
go and
लेकिन
then did you
एक
ask if
चीज
he had
होती है ना,
food,
जब
but the
बंदा बाहर
person would shout that he
घर में
would
तो
not have
लिया है,
anything from
लेकिन जब
outside.
बाहर
Though the
एडवर्टाइजमेंट
fact
करने की
is
जब बात
that
आती
he
है
might eat anything
तो
at
हम
home,
बाहर का,
but
या फिर शादी की सीजन
outside
में
he would exhibit
जहाँ 10-15 लोग
that he
मेहमान
does
हैं,
not take
भोग
anything
चढ़ाने
from
वाला,
outside.
भगवान को
And in
पूछते हैं
marriage, he
कि
would
क्या
raise
शादी
question,
करने वाला कहाँ भोग
would
चढ़ाने जा
have
रहा है,
you if you
अरे
offered
ये
it to the
सीजन
Lord?
सीरियस नहीं है, तुम वहां पर तुलसी पत्र खोजते हैं, इसमें तुलसी पत्र
And they
नहीं
look
है,
for
मेरे
tulsi
घर पे खा के आ
leaves.
जा। देखो हमें किसी को भक्ति करनी है, लेकिन
So you
किसी को
see,
हर्ट नहीं करना है।
we must
मैं तो उस
exercise
सिद्धांत पर जीने
bhakति
वाला आदमी हूँ कि
and
कोई
devotion,
टूट
but
जाए
we
लेकिन
must
सामने वाले का दिल नहीं टूटना
not
चाहिए,
offend
किसी का दिल
somebody.
तोड़ देना, किसी को हर्ट
We
नहीं
can
करना
break the rules, but we should
बहुत
not break
बुरा
the
लगता है,
heart of
क्योंकि
the
उसके
people
हृदय में
sitting
कृष्ण
before
बसा रहता है।
us, because
हम
even
किसी
his
शादी
heart
में गए
is the
और
residence
शादी वाले
of
बैठे
the
हैं,
Lord.
हमसे कहते हैं आपने भोजन किया, तो कह दो ना हाँ हमने खाया, बहुत अच्छा टेस्टी है, इसमें
So if
आपका
somebody
नाम आ
asks
जाएगा।
you that you had the
भूखे
meals,
पड़े हैं,
then you
जूस पड़े
should
हैं, मेरे
say,
हाथ से,
yes, you had
या
it.
फिर ज्यादा इतना ही आप बहुत मतलब रूप गोस्वामी के बाद आपका ही नाम आता हो तो कह दो कि भाई आज मेरा शनिवार है, आज
Or that if you don't want to have it at all, then you say that you have
भोग
fast or
चढ़ाया,
something. But
भोग लगाया,
don't question
भाई भोग लगा है तो खाऊंगा,
if they have
ऐसे
offered it to
करें
the Lord or
या
not,
फिर
if there is tulsi
करें
patra
तो
in that or
आपका
not.
कसूर है। तो प्रैक्टिकल होना चाहिए कि
So I
हमें
would
क्या
request you to
धीर
be
के भी
practical.
प्रिय है,
So
अधीर के भी
these
प्रिय है।
Goswamis are equally loved and liked by
तो आइए
both
इसका
the
उत्तर देते हैं,
people
प्रिय
who have
करो,
patience and who are
क्योंकि
impatient
ये षड
also.
गोस्वामी सबके लिए प्रिय काम करते थे।
So you
प्रिय
see,
करो, करो माने
These SadGoswamis were loved by all because they
सभी
used to
घर में
do
किसके में रहते
things
थे?
which would be
लेकिन
loved and
भक्ति
liked
मामला
by
में
all.
निष्क्रिय हो जाना, कुछ नहीं करना, नहीं, ये करते बहुत थे, लेकिन जो भी करते
So,
थे सबके लिए
being in
श्रेष्ठ
bhakti
करते
does
थे।
not mean that one must become
तो
inactive.
धीर अधीर
On the
दोनों करते
contrary,
थे।
these
धीर और
SadGoswamis
अधीर
used to perform many things, and that is the reason
अधीर काम
they
करते
were
थे,
liked
काम
by
करते थे।
almost everyone.
और निर्मत्सरो, इसके दो अर्थ हो सकते हैं। वे स्वयं निर्मत्सर थे। निर्मत्सर माने किसी
And
प्रकार की
Nirmatsaro
मत्सरता, माने ईर्ष्या
means
नहीं थी इन्हें।
they never had any degree
कोई
of
व्यक्ति थोड़ी भी
jealousy.
भक्ति करता है, भौतिक
So,
संसार में ईर्ष्या
unfortunately,
होती है
today you see in the
कि इसने
material
वो
world,
कमा लिया, ये अच्छा कर
you
लिया,
see there's a
उसने वो
lot
कर
of
लिया।
mutual jealousy and rivalry.
लेकिन कभी कभी भक्ति में भी
But
ईर्ष्या नहीं
even in
होनी चाहिए।
spiritual life, there develops
भक्त
some
आपस में प्यार
jealousy and
से रहे,
mutual
लेकिन इनमें
rivalry.
किसी प्रकार की मत्सरता नहीं थी।
But these
फिर भी ईर्ष्या
Goswamis
तो
never
थी।
had any degree or
ईर्ष्या
iota
का
of jealousy.
मत्सरता को एग्जैक्टली समझाऊं
You see,
तो ईर्ष्या का ऊपर का स्टेज है
if
मत्सरता।
jealousy
ईर्ष्या और
and then
मत्सरता में
comes
फर्क क्या है?
matsarta. So, what is the
अंतर
difference
है।
between jealousy
आप लोग तो
and
करते ही नहीं हो ना, आपको तो पता ही नहीं होगा।
matsarta?
ये पहली बार सुनते होंगे, आपके जीवन में तो ये होता ही
I'm
नहीं है,
sure
आप
you
तो
have not
करते ही
heard
नहीं
these
हो।
words before because you are very high level of devotees.
ईर्ष्या और मत्सरता में
The difference between
ईर्ष्या
Isha
का
and
ऊपर का स्टेज
Matsarta
है
is
मत्सरता।
that Matsarta is higher
मत्सरता
degree
में
to
किसी
Isha, that is
प्रगति
jealousy.
को देखकर जलना, दैट्स इट।
So Isha is all
किसी ने
about
कोई अच्छा पहन
developing
लिया, कोई अच्छा दिख गया,
feelings of
कोई अच्छा खा
annoyance
लिया,
at
कोई अच्छा
somebody's
अच्छा
progress
कर लिया,
or
और
somebody's
उसकी
good
प्रगति को
appearance or good
लाभ
success.
हानिच्छा, श्रीधर स्वामी, दूसरों की प्रगति को देखकर जलना, दुखी होना,
Shridhar
इसे
Goswami
कहते हैं
says
ईर्ष्या।
developing bad habit somebody's
ईर्ष्या
progress
यहाँ
is
समाप्त हो जाती
jealousy.
है, दूसरों को देखकर जलना। लेकिन दूसरों के प्रोग्रेस को देखकर जलना
Now
और
the
जल
other
कर
thing
उसको
is,
गिराने का प्रयास करना,
once that you
ये
have
है
developed
मत्सरता,
jealousy at the
जो
progress of
आप देखेंगे ही
others
नहीं।
and then
आपको
making an
मत्सर कुछ नहीं
attempt
है?
to pull down
लेकिन
somebody who's
ईर्ष्या
making a progress,
फिर
this
जिनमें
is
ईर्ष्या
what
है
is
उनको
called as
गिराने का प्रयास
matsarta.
करना, उनकी
So
बुरी
pulling
चीजों
down
को देखकर
somebody
गिराना,
who is treading upon
ये
the
है
path of
मत्सरता।
progress is
मतलब एक्शन
matsarta.
लेना। ईर्ष्या में एक्शन नहीं होती,
So
बंदा जलता है
jealousy, when
लेकिन फिर
compounded with
धीरा होने
actions
लगता
to
है,
bring down somebody who is
ध्यान भटकाते हैं,
progressing
इसे
progressively
मत्सरता
ahead,
कहते हैं।
is called as
लेकिन
matsarta.
षड गोस्वामी कैसे थे?
But how these
निर्मत्सरो,
Shad Goswamis were, they
इसमें
were
लेश मात्र भी
nirmatsar,
मत्सरता नहीं थी।
means they never took any
और
action to
पूजितो,
bring down
पूजितो
somebody
माने
who is making the
सबके
progress.
द्वारा सर्वलोक
And
पूज्य,
Pujito
इनकी
means
पूजा करना,
that they were worshipped
सब लोग
and
पूजते हैं।
revered by everyone.
भक्तों, जो राजा होता है ना, राजा,
Dear
वो
devotees, must
केवल
you
अपने
understand
देश या अपने राज्य में ही
that a
पूजा जाता है।
king is worshipped only
राजा
in his
केवल अपने देश
kingdom
में पूजा जाता है।
or in
लेकिन
his
ज्ञानी और
country,
भक्त प्रिय
but
सुंदरम में पूजा जाते
intellectuals
हैं।
and devotees
उनकी पूजा
are
स्वर्गलोक में
worshipped
होती है, पूज्य होते
almost
हैं।
everywhere, even in the
श्री
abode of the
चैतन्य
demigods.
भरो,
So,
वहां पर
coming over to the
जिसमें
third
आत्मा
line,
जुड़कर कृपा करे,
Shri Chaitanya Kripa Bharo
भुवि भुवो
means
भारा वहंता
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu
सत्य
has
पर
blessed to a
घुमंड
huge
करो।
extent Bhuvi
सागर
Bhuvo,
के भार को वहन करने वाले हैं
and
श्री षड गोस्वामी। ये रूप सनातन
the
कौन है?
weight
इस भूमंडल
of
के भार
this
की
entire
वहन करने वाले,
universe is being
भार वहन
borne
करने वाले।
by the
भूमि का
Shad
भार कितना है?
Goswamis. What is the weight
भूमि का
of
सबसे बड़ा
the
भार
land
है
or
पाप।
the earth? So
और
sin is
पाप
the
जब तक दूर नहीं
biggest
होगा तब तक
burden
लोग
on the
भक्ति
earth,
नहीं करेंगे।
and burden
षड
of sin
गोस्वामी
cannot be
भक्ति का
diluted
इस
unless
विस्तार को,
people engage in
भक्ति
devotion.
कुशल पर
And that
भक्ति
is
का
the reason
विस्तार
Shad
करके
Goswamis
भूमि के
went
भार
on to
को दूर करते
establish
हैं।
bhakti and lighten the burden
तो जो
upon
कृष्ण
the
का
material
गुणगान
earth.
करते हैं,
So those who
कृष्ण
engage
का
in
गीत
Krishna
गाते हैं,
Kirtan, those
जो
who sing
कृष्ण
the songs
के
of
लिए
Krishna,
नृत्य
those
करते
who
हैं,
dance for
जो
Krishna,
प्रेम समुद्र के साक्षात
those
स्वरूप है,
who are
वीर
nothing
और
but
बजरंग
love
के प्रिय
ocean
है, जो
symbolized,
लोगों के लिए प्रिय कर्म करते हैं,
those who
जो
do good things
निर्मत्सर
for the
है,
people, those who are
जिनके
never
पूजन है,
jealous or do not
जिन
become an obstruction in
जिसने
the
अपनी
progress
कृपा
of
की है,
others, and
उन
those
लोगों
who are
का पूजा
blessed
प्रचार प्रसार
by
करके
Shri
भूमंडल के
Chaitanya
पाप को दूर
Mahaprabhu,
करते हैं।
and those who
ऐसे ही सनातन
engage in
हरिदास
popularizing
प्रेमानंद
Bhagavad Dharma,
जीव और
and in
गोपाल हरि
this
गोस्वामी,
manner
इन
go on to
षड
lighten the
गोस्वामियों को
burden of
वंदे,
sin upon
प्रणाम
earth.
करता हूँ।
So such SadGoswamis, I offer my humble obeisances at the lotus feet of such SadGoswamis. So I offer my obeisances to Rup Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Raghu Yugo. So Yugo means two.
तो रघु जो है ना वो दो है,
So there are two
एक है
Raghus.
रघुनाथ दास
One is
गोस्वामी,
Raghunath Das
एक है
Goswami,
रघुनाथ भट्ट गोस्वामी।
the other one being Raghunath Bhatt
इसलिए ना वो
Goswami.
लंबा लंबा ना हो जाए इसलिए
So
युगो कह के बोलते हैं।
Yugo, Raghu Yugo,
तो रघु
both the
युगो में रघुनाथ
Raghus,
दास और रघुनाथ भट्ट,
Raghunath Das and
और फिर
Raghunath Bhatt,
श्री जीव
and then
गोस्वामी
Sri Jeev
और गोपाल
Goswami
भट्ट
and
गोस्वामी।
Gopal
इस
Bhatt
प्रकार से
Goswami.
6 गोस्वामी
And
यहाँ
hence,
पर
in
मैं
this manner, I offer my humble
बोलता हूँ।
obeisances
आइए
at the lotus feet
अब हम
of the Shad
गोस्वामी की
Goswami.
ओर आगे
So
बढ़ते
now let us move
हैं। यहाँ
further
पर
to
हम
understand
में
the
सुनेंगे,
story
यदि
and
समझ में नहीं
glory
आया तो आप
of
प्रश्न भी पूछ
Sri
सकते
Rup
हैं
Goswami.
कि इस श्लोक में सनातन गोस्वामी बड़े भाई है तो उनका नाम पहले होना चाहिए, रूप गोस्वामी का नाम बाद में होना चाहिए, परंतु रूप गोस्वामी
So there must be a question in your minds and heart that Rup Goswami, being the younger one, it appears first in the shloka than his elder brother.
गोत्र की पहचान तो आप सबको है ना।
So Bharadwaj Gotra.
ब्रह्मा जी से अनेक ऋषि मुनियों का जन्म हुआ
So many
और
rishis
इसी
emerged
वंश
from
का
Brahmaji,
प्रारंभ हुआ।
and that is how the institution of
ब्राह्मण कुल
Gotra
में
started.
भरद्वाज गोत्र में
So in the
किस
Brahmin
सन
family, in the
1546
Bharadwaj Gotra, in
46
1546 Vikram
चैत्र
Samvat,
संवत 1546 में भरद्वाज गोत्र में
in Bharadwaj
सारस्वत
Gotra,
ब्राह्मण परिवार
in the family of
जिनके पिता
Saraswat
का नाम
Brahmin
था
family,
कुमार देव
whose
और
father's name was
माता
Kumar
रेवती।
Dev and mother's name was Revati.
सो कुमार देव और माता रेवती के
So
3 पुत्र
Kumar
हुए।
Dev and Mata
बड़े
Revati had
पुत्र
three
का नाम
sons,
था अमर,
eldest being Amar,
दूसरे पुत्र का नाम था
second being
संतोष और
Santosh,
तीसरे पुत्र का नाम था
and third
अनुपम।
being Anupam.
अमर, संतोष
Amar,
और अनुपम,
Santosh, and
ये तीनों
Anupam.
तोड़ दे ऐसे बेटे हुए।
So
एक को देखो
very
10 बार
great
बोलो, दूसरे को
sons.
देखो 10 बार बोलो। ये अनुपम जो है ना, ये अभी स्टोरी में बहुत कम आएंगे, लेकिन अनुपम को याद रखिएगा।
Anupam
अनुपम आगे बहुत बड़ा कमाल
ji
करने
might
वाला है।
not
ये
appear in the Katha,
भक्ति में
but then
अनुपम और
he is going to
अनुपम होने
establish
वाला है।
great fates.
लेकिन
You
3
see,
बच्चे हुए भरद्वाज
so
गोत्र में से।
Bharadwaj Gotra,
कुल
Saraswat Brahmin
चैत्र
family,
सन
in
1546 में
1546 Vikram Samvat, there were
कुमार
three
देव और रेवती
sons
माता के अमर,
to
संतोष और
Kumar
अनुपम।
Dev and Revati
धीरे धीरे
Mata.
बड़े हुए,
As they aged,
इतने विद्वान थे, इतने
they were
ज्ञानी थे,
so
मेधावी थे
knowledgeable,
कि
wise,
इनको 7
and
भाषा का ज्ञान था।
intellectual that
7
they
लैंग्वेज।
had the knowledge of 7 languages in
देखो
those
बहुत सारी
times.
भाषा आती हैं तो कितना अच्छा काम होता है। हमारे पंकज
Hmm.
जी
So you
जिसको
see,
हिंदी भी आती है, इंग्लिश भी आती है, तो कितना अच्छा ट्रांसलेशन करते हैं। अच्छा है उनके माताजी ने कॉन्वेंट स्कूल में पढ़ाया और फिर ये हमारे सेवा में यहाँ काम में आ रहे हैं। बंदे को गुजराती नहीं आता है, जब मैं गुजराती बोलता हूँ तो मार खा जाता है, लेकिन काम चल रहा। सो कौन सी लैंग्वेज इनको आती थी, क्या ज्ञान था? बंगला भाषा।
so which language were he aware of? It was Bangla language because he was born in Bengal region. Second Hindi, third Sanskrit, fourth Arabic, Persian, and Urdu.
ये सारी लैंग्वेज का ज्ञान
So all
इन
these
3 बच्चों को
languages
था
were known to these three
और
children.
बचपन से ही इन्होंने
And
राजनीति
right
की शिक्षा
from the very beginning, they had the knowledge of politics and
क्योंकि
political science as
भगवान के
well.
पार्षद है।
And because they are the associates of the Lord,
सखिया मंजरिया रूप
the
मंजरी
Sakhis of
ही
Radharani,
है
Rup Manjari
माता
herself
बनकर।
has appeared in the
तो
form of Rup Sanatan.
ये अमर, संतोष और अनुपम
So Amar,
ये
Santosh,
सारी
and
विद्या और
Anupam,
शिक्षा प्राप्त करके
after having attained
दक्षिण
their
भारत में
learnings, went
रामकेली गांव में
to
रहने लगे।
South
कहाँ
India and
रहने
started
लगे?
staying in
रामकेली गांव।
Ramkeli village.
और इस रामकेली गांव में रहते हुए
And in
इनको
this
भक्ति
Ramkeli
का उफान आ
village,
गया।
in their heart,
इतना
devotion went
भक्ति
on
का
to
उफान आ गया।
surface and emerge to a huge
रामकेली
extent.
गांव में रहते
So
हुए
the intensity was
उनके
so
मन में
huge
भगवत स्मरण,
that
भगवत चिंतन होने लगा।
they would only meditate upon the name,
ये जो
glory,
अमर
and
और
pastimes
संतोष
of
ने
the
क्या
Lord.
किया?
So Amar and
रामकेली गांव में रहते हुए
Santosh,
उन्होंने
while staying in
सारी
Ramkeli
उन्होंने
village,
राधा कुंड, श्याम कुंड, गोवर्धन
So staying in Ramkeli village, they went on to recreate Braj. In their own village, they recreated Ramkund, Shyamakund, Govardhan and used to do parikrama. They would take holy dip in Ramkund, Shyamkund, Radhakund and would circumambulate around Govardhan every day. So now that they have grown in age and engaged in devotion service towards the Lord, around that time we had Mughals who were ruling this country. And at that time, Hussein Shah used to be the ruler of Bengal.
तो ये कहां से कैसे बन गए समझ में नहीं आ रहा है, लेकिन खैर बंगाल में उस समय महाराज हुसैन शाह का राज था.
So Hussein Shah used to rule Bengal.
राज्य में पीरू नाम का एक मिस्त्री, ध्यान से सुनिएगा,
And there was
जिसका नाम था पीरू.
Piru,
और पीरू ने महाराज हुसैन शाह के राज्य में
who was a worker,
खंबा स्तंभ बनाया.
a kind of constructor worker.
वृंदावन रंगनाथ मंदिर में जाओगे ना तो वहां एक स्तंभ है.
So if ever you happen to visit to Vrindavan Ranganath temple, you will find a pillar in the complex. So Piru was a construction worker who constructed a pillar with wonderful carvings on that pillar and called Hussein Shah to inaugurate that. Hussein Shah was very, very pleased and happy looking at the pillar. Now this construction worker Piru, who was actually just like us. So when the Sultan appreciated Piru, Piru went on to speak that, "Oh Lord, I can go on to make more beautiful a pillar than even this." Now Sultan got on to develop the field that if he could make more beautiful a pillar, then you should die, because I do not want any other beautiful pillar to be constructed any further. So at the time of being killed or being given a death punishment, the last wish of the person is asked. So Piru replied that my last wish is that you name this pillar upon my name. So that is how that pillar went on to be called as Pirusa Stamb or Pirusa pillar. So Sultan would very often come to the pillar and go back. Many people would also throng and see and appreciate the pillar. Now, as time passed by, once Sultan Hussein Shah, along with his minister, was taking a tour of the region. So the name of the minister of Hussein Shah was Hinga. Hinga, the same hing that you use in your meals. So Sultan Hussein Shah, along with his minister Hinga, was taking a tour of his region and reached the same pillar. So Sultan is after all the Sultan. So Sultan ordered his minister Hinga to abandon the kingdom right away and be out of the bounds of the kingdom. Sultan said, "You just get out of his sight." if you come before me, if you come in my sight, I would kill you just like I killed Piru. Now this Hinga minister had to go out of the dominions of Sultan, and he was always wondering why did king throw him out of the kingdom. So some of the people told Hinga, the minister, that nearby is the village Ramkeli. Why don't you go there and visit them? They are very intelligent ones, and perhaps they will offer you some solution. So that is how Hinga, the minister, came to Ramkeli village, where he met the two brothers Amar and Santosh, and he shared his sorrow of being thrown out of the kingdom. Amar and Santosh answered to Hinga that directly you go to that Pirusa pillar and you carry on the repairs of that pillar, and then you see everything would be set in order. Now Hinga, the minister, came back and got the pillar cleaned, and the king was called to that pillar, and the king was very, very happy. And the Sultan became very happy and pleased to see the same Hinga, the minister. But the point is that the king asked that I never told you, Hinga, that why I am throwing you out, then how come you got to know about what was going on in my heart? Because I never told you. Hinga said, oh my lord, I never got to know anything, but I went to Ramkeli village where I met the two brothers Amar and Santosh. Actually, they were the ones who asked me to carry out the repairs of this pillar, and that is when Sultan Hussain Shah, that how come those two boys who stay away so far away from me and who never know me, how come they know my heart? If they could become my ministers, then all my works would be rendered quite easy. So you see, the boss always needs a manager who would understand him. Otherwise, you see, it becomes a pain in the neck. Only the manager or personal assistant who listens and reads the mind and heart of the owner can only stay in his job. So the king thought that these two brothers can be really very productive for me. So that is how, from the Ramkili village, Amar and Santosh were summoned, and the Sultan offered the jobs to them. So ideally, you see, Sultan need not to offer, they can only order. So the Sultan said, both of you are now my ministers, and Hinga, you now go away. Amar and Santosh, from today, you're the ministers, and whatever you desire is what I shall give you. So you see, just like US is a country, India is a country, whatever income is the income of a country, such was the income of Rup and Sanatan, that is Amar and Santosh. So whatever the country's income is, was the income of Amar and Santosh. You see, the Goswamis, whose katha and story and glory we would hear, were not helpless poor people. Many people claim that they left everything, but the fact is, how much do they have? Abandoning is what these Goswamis did. The income worth of a country, just as a person vomits out and he never stays at that place even for the flip of a second. Similarly, these Goswamis never cared for their money. So this Muslim Sultan kept this Amar and Santosh as ministers. So from that day, their names changed. Amar became Sakar Malik and Santosh became the Bir Khalis. So one point that you must note over here is elder brother was Amar and his name became Sakar Malik, and he only went on to become Sanatan Goswami. Amar, and then Sakar Malik, and he was Sanatan Goswami after having met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the younger one was Santosh. He became the Bir Khas, and then after having met with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and having been initiated by him, he will become Rup Goswami. See, at that point of time, casteism was a strong institution. And those who were engaged in Muslim uh, kingdom, they would be considered Muslim only. So that is how their names perhaps either got changed or that they were converted. Now, the king would always be pleased and would engage in all luxury time and have a gala time. So that is how these two brothers went on to take over all the entire administration, and the king was having a time, lot of fun. But you see, those who have the seeds of Krishna Prem and Krishna Bhakti in their hearts, sooner or later would certainly come to Krishna Bhakti, for sure. No doubt that they were employed at Sultan's court, but that they had come from Golok, and also the upbringing of the parents, which was so elevated. And you see, over a period of time, these two brothers started developing signs of being a recluse, signs of detachment. In order to move ahead in spiritual life, devotional life, an event becomes a game changer. But that does not mean that event itself is the reason d'etre. So you see, when we try to break open the coconut, it might take some time for it to be broken. Not that the seventh hit alone has broken it open. Even attempt from 1 to 6 have played their role. For example, Maharaj Parikshit. It was not that because of being hurled a curse that he went on to achieve Vaikunt, but the fact is that he had been engaging himself in virtuous deed. But yes, that incident of snake, surely the curse surely became the immediate cause. So there are underlying causes and immediate causes. So there was one such immediate event in the lives of these two brothers. So the time was of Diwali, and they had to calculate entire expenses and calculations for the entire year. And you see, some people are very much expert. At least I am, you see, absolutely zero in this. But our devotees are, some of our devotees are very, very strong in calculations. And same was also the case with these two brothers, Amar and Santosh. So in the entire calculation, 4 annas, 24 paise were falling short. So you see, 24 paise or 4 annas do not really matter much. But these two brothers were very much troubled by 4 annas, that there should not be even a calculation error of even 1 anna before the Sultan. So throughout night, they were making calculations over and over again. So when you see, it went quite late in the night, the servant asked if they would need sharbat or a soft drink, which was being consumed by these two brothers. So now the servant went on to sleep. So when he went to the kitchen, he saw that when he was preparing the sharbat, the lights went off, and he had offered the sharbat, instead of sugar syrup, he offered flour syrup. And when he came to the room where these two brothers were sitting, he saw that sharbat was still lying, and the brothers were making the calculations over and over again. So now the servant was at the feet of these two brothers and asked for forgiveness. The two brothers says, "But what is the problem?" And then he said that the last night when I offered you sharbat, the last night I had given you the water of flour, and you people have drunk it. Now, this was the immediate and the last stroke. The two brothers realized that whatever they have been doing, there is no selfish motive of ours, no selfish interest of ours, neither there is any favorable thing for us. And we have been enmeshed so much in this work that our servant went on to give us the water of flour and we even consumed it. If we would have put so much of heart in the Lord, we would have been able to attain the Lord. So immense grief and sorrow came to their heart that so much of time has elapsed without bhajan and kirtan. Unnecessarily, because of the allurement of money, we have come at the court of the king. So many days and months have passed by without doing kirtan of the Lord, without remembering and meditating upon the name of the Lord. Both of them developed strong remorse and developed feelings of being a saint, and they wanted to leave everything. Now, one more shock was to happen. One more arrangement was yet to come. These two were the ministers of the king. The king would obviously eat and sleep and have fun. So these two brothers, to understand the mood and sentiment of the people, by taking the by being in disguise. So the younger one, the Birkhas, that is Rup Goswami, in a different form when he was taking a tour of the kingdom. So as he was passing by, he overheard a conversation between the husband and a wife. The husband said, "Why don't you see there's somebody at the door?" The wife says, "Go to sleep. At such dark hour, it must either be a dog or it must be the slave of the king or some minister of the sultan." And when he overheard this, so Rup Goswami and or the Birkhas went on to cry very strongly, reached his elder brother and started weeping very strongly, placing his head at the lap of his elder brother. When he asked, "Oh, my brother, is there no difference being a dog or being a minister?" I have heard it from my own ears when the people said that it must be either a dog, a slave, or the minister of a king. So is it that being a dog and being a minister is one and the same thing? Sakar Malik, that is Sanatan Goswami, answered, "Oh, the Birkhas, oh, my brother, from the eyes of the material world, it might appear different, but the fact is they are the same because they are all dependent. Because the dog is dependent upon his master, the slave is also dependent upon his king or master, and even a minister is dependent upon his king." So this now both these brothers developed the thought that why should we take refuge at the shelter of a material world personality? Why don't we take refuge at the lotus feet of the Lord? The hearts of both these brothers developed vairagya. And the Sultan was certainly a Muslim. He never believed in bhakti. Just as you people are engaged in jobs and you have this desire to go to Vrindavan, but then you're entangled in your material world. You see, that is the reason I told you this is a very inspiring story and glory of the Shad Goswamis. So both these two brothers are entangled in the material world. Now you see what happens. Now you see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has appeared already and he has taken sannyas diksha. And now, after having taken sannyas, he expressed his desire to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I'm sorry, expressed his desire to go to Vrindavan. So there was Nityanand Prabhu and many other people along with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who set their journey afoot for Vrindavan. So let us go to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and try to understand some shlokas. So the context is mentioned in this shloka, the shloka which is there before you on your screens. So, so it is said that in the shloka that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has started upon his journey to reach Vrindavan along with many of his associates. So as he moved from place to place, whatever place he moved on, hundreds of people would gather at that place. So many a people would come and see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Merely at the darshan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, their griefs and sorrow used to disappear. Now try to understand. From where has Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has set his journey on? So actually he had begun to move to Vrindavan. So he is ahead being followed by other associates. So the path towards Vrindavan, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was to take, you see, he changed his route. So now, after having changed his route, what did he do? What did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu do? So instead of taking the route of Brij Vrindavan, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started to move towards the village Ramkeli. And as he reached Ramkeli village, so as he reached Ramkeli village, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed very ecstatic dance and kirtan, and hundreds of people gathered to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So you see, people thought that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has started his journey for Brij Vrindavan, but he went to Ramkeli village maybe for some time, and after that he would leave for Vrindavan. So days went on to pass by. So many people now started thinking that why everyone was questioning. You see, 10 days have passed by, that why is he staying still in Ramkeli village? But nobody knew, nobody was aware that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is going to bring a revolution in Ramkeli village. Now, the Bir Khas and Sakar Malik were informed that for 10 days Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had been staying in Ramkeli village, and these two brothers had already developed signs of recluseness in their hearts, and they were looking for somebody. And as they got to hear Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has been there in the village for 10 days, these two brothers got overexcited to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the story goes like this: as these two brothers changed their form in the guise of somebody else, they were wanting to move towards Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sultan intervened and asked where they were going. The two brothers said that he is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is God himself, and the Sultan disagreed. But the king was not convinced. But on the night of the 10th day, both the two brothers went on to reach the place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was staying in Ramkeli village. You see, my Guru Maharaj, Param Puja Sri Radha Govind Goswami Maharaj, used to do katha in different countries. But he also used to do katha even in small hamlets and villages. So at that point of time, I also had this query that instead of such big cities and metropolitans, why Guru Maharaj, comes to small villages? You see, I had a very narrow mind at that point of time, and I must say that what the Vaishnavas do is beyond our comprehension. So imagine Chaitanya Mahaprabhu staying at such a small village for 10 days. So there must be some objective, and this objective was the two brothers. So in the middle of the night of the 10th day, the two brothers came in a different form. So they were wearing a dhoti and had a gamcha on their shoulders. And the plowshare on their shoulders. So they took the form of a farmer. So both the two brothers first of all met Nityananda Prabhu. And Nityanand and Haridas went running to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Nityanand and Haridas went running to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and said, "Oh Prabhu, the two brothers for whom you have been staying here have arrived. The Bir Khas and Sakar Malik have come to meet you." Both the two brothers offered their Dandavat Pranam to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and both of them started weeping very badly. They fell down at the lotus feet of the Lord and started weeping at the lotus feet of the Lord. Imagine the stature, so rich personalities, ministers of the Sultan, but they were weeping at the lotus feet of the Lord. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying again and again for both the brothers to rise up. But the two brothers were weeping and offering prayers. And the prayers of the two brothers went like this, which is there on your screens. So the prayer goes like this.
नीच जाति नीच संगी करी नीच काज तोमार अग्रे ते प्रभु कहिते वासिलाज पतित पावन हेतु तव अवतार आमी बही जगते पतित नाहियार। जय जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य दयामय।
So the two brothers are saying their prayers. Oh Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you're most merciful. You give liberation even to the lowest of the low. We are so downtrodden. We are so low placed. We are so lowly born. So the two brothers We feel so ashamed to stand before you.
मत तुल्यो नास्ति पापात्मा न अपराधी न कश्चन। प्रभु हमारे जैसा पापी कोई नहीं, हमारे जैसा अपराधी आपको कहीं नहीं मिलेगा। परिहारे पि लज्जा में किम
O Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there is no other sinner bigger than us. We feel so ashamed to stand before you.
रोते हुए कहते हैं पतित पावन हेतु तोमार अवतार। हे महाप्रभु,
Weeping and crying, the two brothers said, O Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, your incarnation, your appearance is only to deliver the lowly born, the lowly place, and we feel that nobody is more lowly placed than we are. If you're looking to deliver, if you're looking to liberate the lowly born and lowly placed, there's nobody lowly placed more than us.
करी म्लेच्छ कर्म
We have been engaged in very low jobs. We are engaged in the service of the lowly placed. The Sultan has an attitude of enmity with the Gaus and Brahmins, and we have been in an alliance with such people.
चिंता करने की कोई आवश्यकता नहीं है। कर्मवशात कभी कभी कुछ ऐसे कर्म करने पड़ते हैं।
Sometimes one is compulsorily required to engage with such company.
गाय से, ब्राह्मणों से, जीव हिंसा, पशु हिंसा से हमारा संगम है। मोर कर्म मोर हाथे लगाय बांधिया, कुविषय विष्ठा करते बिछाए फैलाइया। हम लोग विषय की विष्ठा में फंसे हुए हैं।
We are entangled in this situation. O Prabhu, O Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, please help us liberate ourselves. In this manner, both the two brothers started placing their request at the lotus feet of the Lord. O merciful, O benevolent, please tell us one thing. Other than us, do you find any other character or individual who deserves, who requires, who needs your mercy more than us? In this manner, both the two brothers started expressing their helplessness and their request. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu goes on to say, so this is a kind of Diksha letter, initiation letter. So now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu goes on to give initiation to both the brothers. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says this shloka.
Tumi dui bhaya mora पुरातन दास आजी है ते दोहार नाम रूप सनातन आज है ते दोहार नाम रूप सनातन क्योंकि दैन्य छाड़ तो मार दैन्य फाटे मोर मन दैन्य छाड़ तो मार दैन्य फाटे मोर मन.
So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says,
आज से तुम दब्बीर खास और साकर मल्लिक नहीं.
from today, upon this moment, you're not Dabbir Khas, and you are now Roop and Sanatan. Looking at your humility, looking at your helplessness, my heart comes to my mouth. And today, I bless you with the new names as Sanatan Goswami, the elder brother, and the younger one being Rup Goswami. Both the two brothers are weeping and crying and saying that they know they do not want to return to the palace and court. We do not want money. We want to go along with you. So there are so many people accompanying you. How would it matter if you add two more to your entourage? And you see, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had come only for this task. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, O Rup, O Sanatan, plucking the fruit and having it is a different thing. And the fruit getting plucked all by itself, the fruit falling down by itself from the tree is a different thing. So plucking a fruit and having it might lead to the fruit being sour, but the fruit which itself comes down from the tree and falls down to the ground is sweet, is ripened. So if you would abandon your house, duty and responsibility by force by yourself, then it might not yield the result to that degree. But by way of our bhajan, by way of our bhakti, if house, job, responsibility stays behind, then you see it will certainly yield sweet results. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stopped Rup Goswami and Sanatan Goswami that your time would come. Engage yourself in the courtly activity because that's your karma, that's your duty, that's your responsibility. Eventually, a time will come when very naturally these things will be abandoned. You see, dear devotees, I always attempt to make my devotees listen and understand this. That sometimes some devotees develop the thought to abandon things in a fit sometimes. So actually, it should happen naturally over a period of time. And that is the reason why I always ask my devotees, I never ask that is the spiritual life going good? I rather ask if your work is doing and going good or not. So you see, until and unless we finish and complete our responsibility, leaving everything aside is very dangerous a thought. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu further went on to say shloka to the two brothers. And where does this shloka come from? We do not know. Only Chaitanya Mahaprabhu knows about it. We will only try to understand the shloka. So let us not look at evidence or illustration, but we should only look at the essence. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, O Rup, O Sanatan, how do you need to stay now? How do you need to live now? Just as just as a woman who has got her heart fixed on some other men, so that woman does her homely tasks and duties in such a devoted, dedicated manner that nobody gets to read her heart. So both of you stay wherever you are, go back to your job and discharge your duties and responsibilities in such a perfect manner. And from within, you must ripen the fruit of your devotion and spiritual life to such a huge degree that once when very naturally it gets ripened, so very naturally it will come down and you will be relieved and liberated. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu goes on to say further, why do you both worry? Why do you both brothers worry? You both have been my associates from numerous births. For sure, Lord Krishna will be merciful upon you, will liberate you. The two brothers said that we don't feel like leaving you, but because you are instructing us, you're commanding us. So you just please be merciful on one thing. And the two brothers said, may you place your lotus feet at our head. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu kept both his feet on the head of the two brothers. Further, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after having kept his lotus feet at the forehead of Rupa and Sanatan, and asked all the people in his entourage to bless them that they must proceed in spiritual life and set a foot on Brij Vrindavan. So, one principle that gets established over here is that you should not waste time in binding up things and abandoning things. Rather, you should focus on taking and seeking blessings of saints and sadhus, surrendering to the lotus feet of the Lord. Because once these things are taken care of, everything else would be taken care of quite automatically. You see, it takes time for the tree to develop, takes time to develop the fruit. But as it gets ripened, it does not take any time to fall it to the ground. So, Vairagya should not be Markat Vairagya. Once you are strongly determined in your heart and strong in your bhakti, so very naturally it shall happen. And in this manner, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu convinced the two brothers to return to their previous life and assignment. Now, imagine if somebody listens to the Katha of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you know, the mind and heart does not remain fixed in the material life. So imagine Rupa and Sanatan, how would they have been focusing upon their material life? Especially the younger one, Rupa Goswami, would weep every day. And that is the reason why Rup, who was younger one, went on to be called as elder one, and Sanatan went on to become the younger one. Because one day, Sanatan Goswami, along with his elder brother Anupam, he left.
इतिहास साक्षी है कि रूप गोस्वामी ने 50% संपत्ति ब्राह्मण वैष्णव भक्तों
So Rup Goswami went on to donate 50% of the wealth to Brahmins and Vaishnavas. 25% of the wealth he gave it to his family, and 25% of the family he kept reserved for Sanatan Goswami for his brother, and wrote a letter to Sanatan Goswami as well. And Rup Goswami, along with his brother Anupam, left for Vrindavan, because he knew that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had left for Vrindavan. So Rup Goswami, along with his brother Anupam, reached Vrindavan. But by the time he reached Vrindavan, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had left Vrindavan. So one more principle gets established at Vrindavan, because he did not get peace even at Vrindavan, because he wanted not Vrindavan but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. People like you and me were not wanting, you and me are wanting more of Vrindavan, but not a guru, isn't it? So people like us who are superficially placed, very shallowly placed, if we listen some stories in Katha, then we forget about Guru Maharaj. Ideally, it should be Guru Maharaj first and then Brij Vrindavan later. So for some time he stayed in Brij Vrindavan, and when he got to know that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is leaving for Jagannath Puri, and as of now he is stationed at Prayag. So Rup Goswami now reached Prayag. So let Rup Goswami reach Prayag, and tomorrow Rup Goswami and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu shall meet. There will be a union. So we will listen to that katha later, which is tomorrow. So these kathas actually connect us in a practical life. And make our life more successful and meaningful. So today, I would say that very often we listen to Krishna Kathas, but Kathas of Goswamis and Acharyas are very, very rare. And you see, we are not that qualified. I am not that qualified to say that Katha also. But then you see, I would always say that the Bhagavad Swarupa devotees have been very, very merciful to give me an opportunity to say the Katha of the SadGoswamis, and I would extend my apology that if I commit a mistake, please ignore that and try to understand the mood and sentiment. So I extend my heartfelt thanks to each one of you, especially the host family, Mehta family, and also Devlukia family who have given us this wonderful opportunity. So, so I want to say each one of you that each one of you might have been thronging to the restaurant sometime or the other. So do you repeat the order that you've already consumed earlier? So usually when do you repeat the order? You repeat when you really like something. So basically, Devlukia Parivar and Mehta Parivar, this is a repeat actually. Already 6 months before, they have organized a beautiful katha. So that way is how great are these people, that how inclined they are to listen to the katha. They come from Swaminarayan sect. They come from Gujarat. So once again, thanks to Kundanba and both her sons, Girish Bhai, Rekha Ben, Mayur Bhai, Minakshi Ben, and Devlukya family, Salesh Bhai, Hema Ben, Deepa Ji, Sandeep Ji, Radhika Priya Mata, Radhika Preeti Mata, and Gansham Priya Prabhu. So let us bring a close to this session. Hare Krishna, Radhe Shyam.
के श्री कृष्ण चंद्र भगवान की